Hello everyone, welcome to episode 45 of Driver's Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone, and we're going to do some news and notes this week. I'm going to be going on hiatus for the entirety of December. We're going to do wheel reviews in December. I've got to work on that this weekend, and I'm going to enjoy the holiday season, even if I am by myself this year. So our first news story starts with some good news. This was a press release from Bristol Motor Speedway, link in the description. I'm going to read parts of this verbatim. Quote, the Nashville Metropolitan Mayor's Office, in partnership with Bristol Motor Speedway, have reached an agreement on contract terms to renovate and lease the historic Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway venue that includes the transformation of the Speedway campus into a year-round multi-purpose venue that will host NASCAR and non-racing revenue-generating events. Subject to approval by the Board of Fair Commissioners, Metropolitan Council and Sports Authority, Bristol Motor Speedway will begin its long-term lease to manage and operate Nashville Speedway and assume all financial responsibility for track renovations and ongoing maintenance. Quote, partnering with Bristol allows Nashville to preserve our 131-year tradition of racing at the fairgrounds and bring the legendary Speedway back to life as a valuable and exciting part of the modernized fairgrounds, said Nashville Mayor John Cooper. Recent renovations to the fairgrounds include a new MLS stadium, fair park, and event expo facilities. The revitalized Fairgrounds Speedway will provide a significant economic impact for Nashville and the region. An analysis by Tourism Economics estimates the Speedway could generate about $200 million annually in economic activity through visitor spending in hotels, restaurants, and other attractions. One of the oldest racing facilities in the United States, Fairgrounds Speedway opened in 1904 and has hosted an annual NASCAR competition from 1958 to 1984. Its celebrated history includes race wins by stock car icons Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, Darrell Waltrip, and Sterling Marlin. End quote. You know what? I like this. I like the idea of classic speedways being fixed up and begin hosting racing again. This story again makes me very happy because I do like the idea. I'm looking forward to North Wilkesboro next year. We need to find more of these old tracks and fix them up and bring racing back because it might not be as popular as it once was, but it still has a big fan base. So, our next story comes from Adam Stern. Now, according to a tweet by Stern, I'm going to just clean this up so it actually sounds legitimate. Like it sounds better. According to Stern, quote, NASCAR holding a Cup Series race outside of the U.S. is now a when, not if situation, and the league is in active talks with a bunch of different venues, per Chad Siegler, NASCAR's VP of International Business. Chad Seeger says there's no timeline yet, but he wouldn't rule out 24. Now, let's say this happens. I'm guessing they're going to go to one of two tracks. If they go to Canada, they'll go with Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, or if they go to Mexico, they'll go to Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. Both, hold on. Fighting off a bit of a sore throat this week. Both are former hosts to Xfinity Series races, and logically and logistically, this makes the most sense. I don't see them going to Europe just yet because of the costs involved. Might be too much even for the richest teams, and I also hope they don't go oval because people are getting into the road course racing. Now, personally, I'm not a road course racing fan, but I understand why people like it. I'm interested to see how all of this plays out. And for our last news story this week, we're going to go back to the Chicago street race. And I might seem like I'm complaining it a bit much, but if the organizers keep handing me rope, I'm going to hang them with it. Because there's a number of things that have happened that is just makes me wonder, is there too much or not enough planning? And what I mean by that is, let's talk about the new founding partner model that NASCAR is going to be trying from this race. Now, this is a quote from JC from a Sports Business Journal article, Adam Stern. According to Stern, sources say that NASCAR has hit the market seeking founding partners worth roughly $2 million annually, including ad time with NBC Sports. The 3-year commitments 3-year commitments. Really? Sought match up with how long NASCAR's deal with the city of Chicago to hold the race. Again, don't spike the ball before you get to the end zone. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, NASCAR has found a receptive audience to the pitches and is active talks with a dozen brands, according to a source close to the sanctioning body. NASCAR is seeking out companies that either are headquartered in the Chicago region or have a major presence in the market. An obvious topic, for example, would be McDonald's, which is both based in Chicago and is in NASCAR with a sponsorship with Michael Jordan's team 23XI Racing. Now, here's where things get kind of weird, but I'll get to that in a minute. Each sponsor will get a certain section of the track which will be completely branded in their colors and logos, like both sides of the walls and any pedestrian bridges. There will be no title sponsor of the race, similar to the Cup Series Championship race, which has no title sponsor and divides its sponsorship along NASCAR's 4 premier partners: Busch Beer, Coca-Cola, Geico, and Xfinity. Okay, so with changing economic times comes changing sponsor strategy. Okay, I get that. This idea sounds kind of good, but I don't think from a traditional sponsor standpoint it's as viable in certain situations. For example, this might not work at a track like Martinsville and should be tried with road courses and maybe super speedways. This will not work well on a short track. Now we go to the other issue with the Chicago street race. And again, I think that there's a lot of thought and at the same time no thought being put into this. And when I say that, here's what I mean. Last Thursday, the higher priced tickets went on sale. Now, when you go over to the Chicago Street Race website, the official website, they claim this is, quote, both a NASCAR race and a music festival, so that there is something for everyone. Now, let me explain what that means. What this basically means is this is the Circuit of America's tactic of having a high-value concert in addition to the race, which brings in more fans. Now, this in and of itself is not going to get ragged on because I think it's a good idea, and it's proven itself to be a money draw. Now, you're selling tickets to something you're billing as a street festival. Let me ask you a question. Who is performing? That's the $64,000 question. Nobody, not the organizers, not the city of Chicago. Nobody knows who is performing, despite tickets already being on sale. How do you screw that one up? How do you announce a brand new music festival with tickets on sale, but you don't mention anybody who's performing at the venue? Now, the race is the major selling point, but if you're advertising it as a music festival, why would you have no talent announced? Who would buy tickets to this? Who buys tickets to a new music festival without any indication what bands or even genre of music is going to be performing there? How did anybody think advertising this event as both a race and a music festival, but not book a single act before beginning to sell tickets, would be anything more than dumb? I might actually do a whole go through every issue that I've discussed prior to that about the Chicago Street Race. It's just, how do you make this mistake? It's almost as if just ideas were being thrown out without the logistics of them being explained. People are skeptical of this working. I understand why, and I get it. I'm not jumping on board here. No. I'm not jumping on board this ship until I'm convinced this ship will float. There's a lot of other people who agree with me, and while I hope for the best, I will prepare for the worst. Okay, I need a break. I need to get some water. My throat's a little sore. So I'm going to go back to my rant on working because I had an argument that I'm going to discuss. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Now, I wasn't originally going to talk about this, but just before I started recording, I got into an online argument with a now former friend. We're both the same age, we went to school together, and she was, and I thought, the same mindset on me on this subject because she was raised just as old school as I was. But a little while ago, she sent me a DM after hearing some of my podcasts complaining about some of the things I said about kids, and without even knowing it or realizing it, she proved my point for me. Now, I'm just going to cover this because it does factor into a little bit. My argument about quiet quitting is that when people who do the minimum my argument about quiet quitting is that people do the minimum amount of work that they have to do. They typically don't last long. They aren't popular with coworkers, and they end up causing more problems than they are worth. Her response is people want a better work-life balance. Now, I never said that was a bad thing. I'm just saying that if you don't want to do more than the minimum, don't expect anybody to promote you, and don't expect to have any job security when tough times come around. Now, the other argument that she was angry was that I said that kids have been pampered and have been too accommodated and have the goalposts moved in terms of schoolwork. Her response was, well, you don't understand the trouble kids are in. You don't understand how tough it is being a kid and how much kids have to worry about. And you know what? Here's my response to that. Kids today have better access to information and resources than at any point in human history. I would even go so far as to say that school libraries are not as vital as a direct result of this. In this day and age, you literally do not have to leave your bedroom to do a full school report with all the sources and information needed. Now, in theory, because of this access to information, not only should the goalposts be as far away as possible, they should be so solidly in place that it should be anchored to the Earth's core. In actuality, kids are pampered, they've been accommodated, and they've had the goalposts move so much that standards are beginning to lose all meaning. And according to some studies, about 20% of students who have high school diplomas are functionally illiterate. Yes, as many as 1 in 5 high school graduates can't read or write. This proves what I've been saying. Kids just, when you take away all standards and you give them all safety nets and move the goalposts, they don't have the ability to fail. And when you can't fail, no standards don't mean anything. Now, who is to blame for this? Well, I'm an outsider. I don't have kids. I don't want kids. But I've noticed that there seem to be two sides on this. The parents seem to blame the schools, and the schools blame the parents, and I think everyone involved can be blamed. Now, again, I don't have kids. I don't want kids. But I think it's fair to say that when you become a parent, whether you choose to be or otherwise, you are obligated to take care of that child for 18 years. You are responsible for raising your child. It is not the government's job. It's not society's job. It's your job. You're responsible for everything that child eats, reads, watches, plays with, and does. I hate the old saying, quote, it takes a village to raise a child, end quote. I'm not part of your village. I don't want to be a part of your village. It shouldn't take a village because parents should be able to raise their own kids. Now, if your child has a D average at best, but they can find time for social media or time to play Call of Duty, maybe that's the problem. If your kid can't pass tests, but they're good at extracurriculars, that might be part of the problem. As one famous rant stated, we can't study for the test because we had a soccer game. Well, that's the parent's problem, not my problem. But on the other hand, the schools do need to take some of the blame here because the schools don't stand up to parents as often as they do out of fear of lawsuits. If a parent threatens to file a lawsuit against the school because their child got a bad grade, the schools will capitulate. I have never in my life blamed anyone else for my failures. Unless it's something where something beyond my control happened. And believe me, we've all had things where we've had failures because of circumstances beyond our control. Does it suck? Absolutely. Do people blame you for being upset about it? No. I mean, if you put your heart and soul into something and you want it to succeed, but something completely out of your control causes it to fail, nobody's going to blame you for being upset. That's just the way it is sometimes. But I never put the blame on anyone but myself when I failed. When I didn't do well on a test or a project, did I blame the school? No. Did I blame the teachers? No. My failures were my fault. I didn't study enough. I didn't work as hard as I could. I made mistakes. I'm a human being. But it was never anyone else's fault except mine. If I ever suggested to my parents that we should bring legal proceedings against the school for my failures, I guarantee you my butt would still be red after my dad tanned my ass with an extension cord. Now, why is this an issue? Well, as I said before, I work in retail. I've seen many kids come through. And it's amazing how some of these kids have no motivation whatsoever to do anything. Now, to be fair, we have had a lot of kids who have come through who are decent, hardworking kids who bust their asses and do hard work. And you know what? No problem with them. I defend them all the time. I like them. If you're going to come in, you're going to work hard, and you're going to do your job, even if other people might think it might not matter. You get an A in my book, and I will respect you, and I will be more than happy to help you out if the need be. But these other kids who have no motivation is kind of amazing. Now, granted, lack of motivation is not a new thing, but it's kind of mind-boggling how unmotivated these kids are. It's just, when there are other jobs to do and you're just standing around like a bump on a log, okay, what? And the reason why I bring this up is because going back to moving the goalpost, it's a clear cause and effect. If you have safety nets and you move the goalposts, you take away the ability to fail. And kids lose motivation because if you can't fail, why work hard? If there is no if you just do your work and you're guaranteed success, why work harder than you have to? That's the message we're sending. So when these kids get to college or a real job or the real world, they just can't handle it. And I say this because New York University just fired a chemistry professor because 82 of the 350 or so students signed a petition complaining his class was too hard. Here was what was actually happening. Many of these kids were mad because they were expected to come to class, listen to the lecture, ask questions, do the work, and contribute. He wasn't going to do the work for them, and he made that point perfectly clear. And when you get to college, and once you turn 18, you are a grown-up in every sense of the word. And his message was, you're a grown-up, and you will act like it in my class. And these little kids couldn't handle it. They're literally adult children. Physically, they are over the age of 18. Physically, they are adults. Mentally, they are still children because they've never had it any other way. When you go out into the real world, colleges and employers do not have to care about you. And once these kids end up in a situation where the goalposts aren't moving, there's no safety nets, and there's nothing they can do about it, they can't handle it and just melt down. You as parents and you as educators have failed an entire generation of kids, and you've created a situation of where a generation of people can't handle being in the real world. I don't have any responsibility in this. I didn't contribute to this. You all caused the problem. You all should solve it. Don't punt this to me or anyone else because it's not our problem. You screwed up. You clean up the mess. We're not involved. Okay. Now, this will be the last time I'm going to talk about this subject for some time, and that about does it for this week. I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. I will have a new episode of Driver Suit Blog next week. We're going to have episode 46. I'm Dave Farr, so leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.